This is a warning. The Grim Reaper of radio, Bob Romanik, with his off-the-record show is about to air. He's probably the nastiest and craziest son of a bitch that you've ever had the misfortune to encounter. The Grim Reaper show will be very controversial and probably quite tasteless. If you are even slightly offended by controversial matter concerning religion, racial matters, politics, or life's problems, you are hereby warned to turn this program off immediately. The Grim Reaper show will be, like his face, very scary and very ugly. At this time, not proudly, but shamefully presents to you Bob Romanik, the craziest son of a bitch on the radio today.
This is Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio, and you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, radical radio. And we are, as always, proud to be the Patriots. Hey, here it is, another good day. You know, I talked yesterday a little bit about the flag, the Confederate flag, about our country. Had so many responses out in the street. And I had 4 or 5 people. I said, try to give me a call if you'd like. I said, sometime I don't get to the callers because I'm ranting and raving. And all of them. Bob, I'd rather not. Don't want to get involved. And I said, and it was 4 whites and 1 black, and even the black guy didn't want to get involved. I said, what the hell? You want to get involved in what's going on in your country? You've got every right to say something. I don't have to agree with it. I argue with some of my white friends every day. I argue with some of my black friends. And if I give them my opinion and they get pissed, 2 things. Number 1, they're not my friend if I can't give my opinion. And number 2, they can, or that should be number 1. My number 2 should be number 1. They can kiss my ass, my white, stinky, hairy ass. Don't want to piss you off when people, they want you to listen to everything they've got to say because what they have to say is right. What they have to say may be right in their mind. Doesn't have to be right in my mind because what's right in my mind doesn't have to be right in my friend's mind. We can agree to disagree. We can talk racial issues. We can talk political issues. It just pisses me off. Hey, Romanik, you're on that Amika Jackson Hicks. The hell with Amika Jackson Hicks, the bitch. And I said bitch, the black bitch, because she's black. If she becomes white, she can be the white bitch, like Kern and like Mrs. Eckert and like Brenda Williams and all the other white people that I talk about. I don't hold back. I don't give a damn about a color. But it pisses me off when somebody brings that to me. The gentleman said, I couldn't believe it yesterday. Hey, you can't talk about Amika. You can't call her a bitch. I said a bitch to me is an adjective. It's a bitchy person. It's an aggravating person. It's not a noun. It's not a gender identification, man or woman. It's not a woman identification. It's an attitudinal identification. But make it like it is. Amika Jackson Hicks, the day the black bitch won election for mayor, or the day she ran for mayor, she's open game. I didn't pull Amika Jackson Hicks off the street and say, hey, I don't like this bitch. You've never heard me talk about somebody I didn't like that wasn't involved in politics. Never, ever. But all of a sudden, I can't talk bad about Amika Hicks. It's going to hurt the St. Clair County Freedom Coalition. I'm a member of the Freedom Coalition. It's not my coalition. I can do what the hell I want. But at the end of the day, people can dislike me. But I guarantee you they dislike the St. Clair County culture of corruption more than they dislike me. I've never done anything to them but expose some of them. Never taken their money. Never done anything. I'm not waiting around for a $100,000 pension that they're going to have to pay me for the rest of my life. They can be pissed at me all they want. I'm an individual. I can say what I want, when I want, to whom I want, about what I want. Because the last time I looked, when I drove by the courthouse today, Even though the culture of corruption is circling that courthouse day in and day out, the St. Clair County Democratic Central Committee, I still see that great American flag flying, which is a symbol to me that we have freedoms. We have freedoms to disagree. What the hell is freedom's worth if we can only have a freedom if everybody else feels the same way? That's not free. Are you nuts? Hey, you're free to pick whatever car you want in that parking lot. Hey, well, what are you talking about? They're all black. They're all Chevys. They all have a 6-cylinder. They all look the same. That's not freedom. That's not freedom of choice, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. What the hell are you people thinking? Get off your asses. The time is coming. We're going to talk about the Confederate flag. We're going to talk about the Senator Foghorn. I say Buckwheat Claiborne. Now, somebody don't call me and say, you can't talk about the senator like that. He's black. Give a damn if he's purple. You've heard me talk about Mark Sweet Cakes Kern, that white stupid son of a bitch. You've heard me talk about God Sprague. You've heard me talk about John Red on a noodle like a pecker on a Poodle Bear Civic. Nobody says nothing about that, so don't tell me who the hell I can say what to. It really pisses me off. The Moose Lodge, the family fraternity, Belleville, Swansea, 1221, their 5th annual golf tournament. Coming up this Saturday, July the 11th, the Triple Lakes Golf Course in Millstadt, Illinois. If you have any questions or concerns, you can call Royce Braden at 618-539-6030. Also, coming up Friday and Saturday, July the 10th and the 11th, Millstadt Fireman's Picnic at Liederkranz Park in Millstadt, Illinois. Friday night, the Well Hungarian. Saturday night, Hillbilly Authority. They're going to have a Chicago ball tournament, whatever the heck that is. Chicken dinners. They're going to have fried fish, a lot of booze, a lot of music, a lot of great times this Friday and Saturday, July the 10th and the 11th at Liederkranz Park in Millstadt, the Millstadt Fireman's Picnic. Don't forget, you can pick me up on iTunes. Type in Bob Romanik and/or the Grim Reaper of Radio. You can go to our streaming site at insanebroadcasting.com. One word, common spelling. You can like us on Facebook at KQQZ 1190 AM or our sister station, KZQZ 1430 AM for the best in the golden oldies. You can also hear my repeat performance every day at 4 o'clock p.m. And also, now I'm broadcasting from the graveyard to the graveyard shift every night at the stroke of midnight. On this date, July the 7th, 1550, Europe introduced the first chocolate. On this date, July the 7th, 1863, the first military draft by the United States was enacted. You could buy an exemption for $100. On this date, July the 7th, 1891, a patent was granted for the traveler's check. On this date, July the 7th, 1930, construction began on Boulder Dam, which later was renamed the Herbert Hoover Dam. On this date, July the 7th, 1958, Alaska became the 49th state in the United States when President Eisenhower signed the Alaskan Statehood Bill. On this date, July the 7th, 1961, James R. Hoffa was elected chairman of the Teamsters. On this date, July the 7th, 1972, the first woman FBI agents were sworn in. Susan Raleigh, a former Marine, and Joanne Pierce, a former nun, were the first 2 women FBI agents on July the 7th, 1972. On this date, July the 7th, 1976, for the first time in its history, West Point allowed women to enroll in the military school. 119 women enrolled as first female cadets. On this date, July the 7th, 1987, the Kiwanis Club ended their men-only tradition and voted to admit women. That's what happened on this date, July the 7th, throughout all these years in our world's history. Once again, I thank everybody for the emails, the text, all the good information. I want to start off on a really sad note. I want to send my deepest condolences to the Sherman and Marie Sherrill family. Their lovely daughter, Margaret Maria James Sherrill, she passed away last week. Beautiful daughter of the ex-mayor of Washington Park, Sherman Sherrill, and his lovely wife, Marie. And they're going to have their ceremonies at the Pilgrim Temple CME Church at 1800 Trinley Avenue in East St. Louis. The burial will be Saturday, July the 11th. Viewing will be from 10 to 10:50. Services will be at 12 noon. And again, ex-mayor of Washington Park, a great man, great mayor, friend of mine, Sherman Sherrill, and his lovely bride, Marie. I want to give my biggest and thoughtfulest condolences. And I know you loved your daughter, and it's hell. It's hell, isn't it, when a mother or father has to bury their daughter or their son? Should be just the opposite as always. Your sons and daughters should be burying their fathers and mothers, but things happen. So once again, my deepest and sincerest condolences to the Sherrill family, Sherman and Marie, for the loss of their dear daughter. Jerry Rosh, thank you, buddy, as always. Sends me something. Hey, they're going to have to take the theme song off. Just the Good Old Boys from the TV series Dukes of Hazzard. And, Jerry, I agree with you completely. It's amazing. And we're going to talk about it here because so many people, that's on everybody's mind. That's a bigger controversial issue than the Ferguson riots. But Jerry Rosh, as always, a friend of mine, pleasure listening. It's a pleasure to get your emails and get your facts. I think I got a frog or something in my throat, but here's another one from Taxpayer. And he's got a good point, or she's got a good point. You can go to the website, the BND website, and get all the salaries for all the county employees. Sometimes they try to hold back, but it says, since they're talking about Claiborne, since he always likes to post comments favorable to Kern, perhaps Kern has a new tenant in his Assominium complex. No, he's not talking about Claiborne there. Joe English, and I like Joe English, a good guy, but he's always shilling. He's always shilling for Mark Sweet Cakes Kern. And Taxpayer says, maybe you should get you be a tenant in the Assominium complex of God Sprague and Mark Sweet Cakes Kern. It says here, though, with hemorrhoid Herbie taking up so much floor space, it might be a while. He also agrees that Catherine Rocco, I think she's going to be a candidate. She was a candidate that ran against James Claiborne, just about beat James Claiborne with no money, or not much money. She's an attorney. I think she practices in St. Louis. But I hear she's coming out for a second round, and she may be running for another position come 2016. And if she does, we wish her the best. Here we've got some from Sub Marcus. Thanks to your station, I really know what's going on. The story about the closing of the food bank in Cahokia really had me outraged over the holiday weekend. He says, what a great country, and people are starving. He says he loves to eat, and he'd lay down his Subway sandwich to help the people eat. He says, I empathize with them, and next time I'm going to go fishing and hope to catch enough fish to help all of them. Dave Sub Marcus. P.S. I also listen to 1190 on my boat. Dave, thank you very much. Last but not least, and I'd like to get to a lot more, but I can't, I'd like to wish Terry Plogovich a happy 69th birthday. A happy 69th birthday, a belated birthday. He was 69, my favorite year, 69 on July the 6th yesterday. So I want to say happy birthday to Terry Plogovich, and also want to say hello to his son, Dean, a professional law enforcement personnel out of Macoupin County. And I can't talk about the good people in Bunnell. What a great group of people in Bunnell without saying hi to Sheik 1 and Sheik 2. So Sheik 1 and Sheik 2, hello to you guys, and happy 69th birthday to Terry Plogovich. Okay, where we want to go here? I'm going to start with Claiborne. Article in the News Democrat, pick it out of the trash, don't buy it. It's in the editorial. Big prize for Senator Claiborne. Here's a little joke that the editorial staff, the News Democrat, if you didn't get a copy, it says, so this lawyer dies, and upon arrival at the pearly gates, St. Peter's rushes to greet him. Congratulations, Senator Claiborne. You win the prize for the human who lived the longest. Senator Claiborne replies, there must be some mistake. I was only 78 when one of my ex-girlfriends backed over me. I will add, one of his ex-girlfriends who had a state job ran over him. St. Peter says, no, Senator Claiborne. I added up all your billable hours. By my calculations, you were 257 years old. And it says, too bad the joke's really on the taxpayers in general and East St. Louis specifically. Illinois State Senator James Claiborne and his firm, Claiborne, Sabo, and Wagner, billed East St. Louis $778,000 last year. That represents a 50% boost in what his old firm, Hinshaw and Culberson, represented the city and charged $515,000. All told, the lawyers in East St. Louis cost East St. Louis last year over $900,000, and I believe it's over $1 million. There's still some bills out that they're trying to hide. It says nearly double Belleville's legal bills. And I want to know, Amika Jackson Hicks, you say you're going to take a hard look at Claiborne. You're going to keep him as the corporate counsel when you said you weren't going to. You're going to keep him around when you said you were going to get rid of the culture of corruption in East St. Louis. You're keeping him around when you said it wasn't going to be business as usual. And then you try to defend him and say, well, most of that money was for workman's comp. No, only about 20%, Amika Jackson Hicks. And Amika Jackson Hicks, the mayor of East St. Louis. People of I drove through East St. Louis yesterday. I drive through the Roosevelt Homes. I know somebody said, hey, you're going to get killed. And you know what? I may. But I just wanted to drive through my old home area. And I drove all through East St. Louis by Jones's Park. And I have to say, you proud black people, you're proud, but you're stupid. You guys are starving down there. I saw all the houses knocked down, all the burnout buildings, all the kids walking down the street, 12, 13, 14 years old. Clothes really look bad, and it's not their fault. It's your parents' fault. It's the parents' fault because you let these politicians come in and buy you for $1 or a fifth of Chantilly wine or a blunt. What the hell's wrong? And that's not all the people of East St. Louis, but that's what these politicians give out. And there's so many destitute people down there that they'll take whatever they can get. And I don't want to talk bad about them because they're trying to survive. But everyone down in East St. Louis, everyone below the hill, and everyone above the hill, take a drive through Washington Park, through East St. Louis. You'll see what's going on. And I don't give a damn if you're black or white or purple. You can't like it. You can't like what's going on when poor people just get penalized year after year. And these politicians say what they're going to do. They're going to be for more jobs, lower taxes, less crime. That's politics 101. They all say it, but it never happens. It never happens. You'll hear it in the 2016 election. Yeah, we're going to stop the crime. We're going to get more jobs. We're going to lower taxes. And they don't do any of the three because they can't. And you know why they can't? Because they don't have to. You people, black and white, all throughout St. Clair County, you will put up with this crap. I don't know if you're just numb to what's going on. Maybe you are. And if you are, then you're not stupid. You're just pathetic. People, you got to wake up. This crap in East St. Louis. Here's Eddie Jackson, a $100,000 a year job. He's the state representative in the East St. Louis area. Now, his daughter's the mayor. She's got two jobs, $75,000, $80,000 for the state, another $50,000 part-time for East St. Louis. Eddie, I'm sure, got her husband, Amika Jackson Hicks' husband, DeMarcus, and I believe that's his first name, DeMarcus Hicks, got him a job making $50,000 a year in benefits. down in East St. Louis. That's the elite people. You keep electing Eddie Jackson. You keep electing Clay Barn. You keep electing Greenwood. People like Alvin Parks, who promise you everything but give you nothing. What the hell? Don't you understand what's going on? All the poverty in East St. Louis, and it's never going to get any better. And I do say how East St. Louis goes is how this whole county goes. I'm for helping the people of East St. Louis. Number one, because they're human beings, they're American citizens. We deserve and we need to help them. We deserve a better East St. Louis, and we can't get a better East St. Louis unless we all work together to help pull out all the poverty, all the homelessness, all the vacant buildings. It's going to take time, but we have to start. We can't let it just sit and sit. It's getting worse and worse every day. We have to do something to help the good people of East St. Louis. And you know who should be saying that day after day? The senator. The senator, Foghorn, I say, Buckwheat Claiborne. He don't give a damn, made over $1 million eating at the public trough. The trough that we pay is hardworking taxpayers. Eddie the Gerbil Jackson, state representative, part-time position, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. Benefits, insurance, and he'll get a big pension. You think they give a damn, people? They throw crap in your face. You give them your vote, and they reward you by throwing crap in your face. This is Bob Romanik. The Grim Reaper of radio, and you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190, America's bi-state voice of freedom, your guardian of the First Amendment, Radical Radio, and we are, as always, proud to be the Patriot.
From KQQZ 1190 AM, St. Louis, Missouri, USA, you're listening to Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio.
This is Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio, and you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, and proud to be your First Amendment and all-American station, Radical Radio, and we stand tall as the Patriot. Before we get on the flag situation, and lines are open, we are America's voice of freedom. We are definitely the Patriot. You can call toll-free 1-888-394-1430. On the east side, 394-1190. You can give me your take, black or white. Don't be afraid either way. This is America. Don't ever be afraid to speak free in this great country. And I've had people tell me, my friends, hey, Romanik, watch what you say. Hey, I'm tired of that crap. Don't judge a person by his words, especially only by his words. Judge a person by their actions. Judge a person by their actions. You know, anybody can say anything, but when you do something, that shows what you said that you were committed to. But I hate it. Hey, you said this wrong, Romanik. I'm tired. I'm going to say what the hell I want, when I want, and don't like it, don't listen. Now listen, I'm going to say, hey, I don't like that bastard giving out $1 million. Don't be for him. Now, I talk bad about him. Are you not going to be for him because I talk bad about him? No, you're going to take what he's got. And that's the same way with the Freedom Coalition. I'll talk bad about anybody I want. Don't hold it against the St. Clair County Freedom Coalition. They're out trying to help people. But what I will say about the St. Clair County Freedom Coalition, they're a group of individuals who believe in freedom of speech. So if everybody believes in freedom of speech, we should all be able to say anything we want, anytime we want. I'm going to get off that for the meantime. Hey, St. Louis Mayor, before we get in to the Confederate flag, St. Louis Mayor Francis the Mule Slay, you stupid, ignorant, no-count, low-life, good-for-nothing, sawed-off piece of crap. You promised last election. Why do you politicians always promise everything and give nothing? You promise. You promised the crime rate would go down. You promised it'd be a safer city. The homicides in St. Louis City for the first 6 months of this year is 98. 98, right at 100 murders in the first 6 months in the city of St. Louis, as opposed to 52 for the same time period last year. What an increase. About a 90% increase in killings from last year in the first 6 months. And I got to say, Slay, I don't. Last election, when I supported Lou Reed, he didn't support me. I supported Lou Reed because if Lou Reed, the president of the Board of Aldermen, would have got elected, he had a proposal. He had a plan to stop the violence or help stop some of the violence. You'll never stop all of it. But you promised, Slay, it was going to be safer. And you said, why is Bob Romanik fighting for the mayor candidate in St. Louis? And I said, Slay, you idiot. I go to St. Louis. I travel to St. Louis. Me and my family shop and eat in St. Louis. We go through St. Louis. I want a safe town. Being unsafe in St. Louis isn't just unsafe for the people of St. Louis, because people in the Illinois side travel to St. Louis every day, all day long. But Francis Slay, you no good piece of crap. And I don't hold this against the St. Louis Police Department. I think they're a bunch of great guys. They're doing the best they can with the resources they have. But when you've got poor leadership from the top, and from the top is Mayor Francis the Mule Slay, you no-count rotten bastard, give the people some protection. Give the people some safety. You've got a bodyguard, Slay. You're not concerned. Your family's not concerned, but every other family in St. Louis is concerned. And I don't know, Slay, if you'll run again for mayor and tout it as another record-breaking 8th time or 9th time. I think the people of St. Louis are tired of your crap. I think they're all tired of your crap. I think your supporters are tired of what you haven't done, not what you've done, what you haven't done for the good people of St. Louis. We've got some callers. Go ahead, caller. Let's take one caller before I go crazy. Go ahead, caller. You're on the dark side.
Hi, Bob. This is Rob. I had a story that I thought you might be interested about an Illinois public official. I know you're interested in exposing the misdeeds of elected officials, and I'm thinking it might be something that people haven't heard about in the mainstream media. This is about a Centralia, Illinois police officer who pleaded guilty last week to domestic battery. His girlfriend had said he threatened her life with his service pistol pointed to her head and then stuck the barrel in her mouth. And instead of being fired from his job, he was allowed to resign, and he was given a severance package.
Okay, sir, let me, and I appreciate the call. I won't mention your name because they may know who you are. But first, I got to say, sir, and I don't want to be argumentative, number one, you can accuse anybody of anything. And I'm not taking up for this guy, because if this in fact happened that he intimidated and threatened his girlfriend by a gun and whatever other violence was alleged, until someone's found guilty or pleads guilty, there's always the presumption of innocence in this great country, which I love, and I think you and everybody else would. But on the other note, if he in fact did this, he's not a police officer. He was a bum with a badge. Let's distinguish him between being a police officer and being a bum with a badge. But I'd have to say, sir, if they let him resign, apparently he had some political hookups, and that may be good for him, but that's not good for the taxpayers, because now they're paying the pension of this guy for the rest of his life. Was there ever any trial, sir?
No, he pleaded guilty.
Okay,
he pleaded guilty. So
he pled guilty. Yeah. What charge did he plead guilty to?
Domestic battery.
Domestic battery.
It was only a misdemeanor charge that he pleaded guilty to.
Well, then he is a bum with the badge. And I maybe there's another attorney or an attorney out there. I didn't know there was a misdemeanor domestic battery. I thought they took that serious and it was always a felony, but I could be wrong.
Well, I believe it's a misdemeanor domestic battery charge. That's if you can go on judici.com and look up the information. But he did plead guilty last week to the domestic battery charge. But the girlfriend alleged that he had pointed a gun at her head and then put the barrel of the service pistol in her mouth. And he was allowed, as I said, to resign according to. Well, this is Debbie. Well, I won't mention the other. It's another radio station,
okay.
A local radio station's news. They said he was allowed to resign, and he did get a severance package.
Okay, now he's not getting a retirement. A severance package probably is the overtime he had and the comp time he had and the accumulated time he had. Is that what it was?
Now, I don't know the terms of the service package. I don't, but it's just there's at least among the local people over there in Centralia, there's certainly a reputation that there's some less than honest things going on there among the some of the leaders.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it happens all over. Maybe we just incorporate Centralia and annex Centralia into St. Clair County, because if there's any culture of corruption going on in Centralia, I'm sure the boys in Belleville will sure welcome it. Sir, thank you very much for the call. I want to talk, and we've got a few minutes before break, this situation with the Confederate flag. Someone sends me something that a gentleman, local school board, they fired somebody for allegedly stepping on the United States flag. And I don't think it was right, but he was trying to prove a point about freedom of speech. Another gentleman loses his job because he takes a selfie in some Confederate undershorts. He was a police officer, not while he was on duty. I didn't see the picture, but he should be fired for being stupid. He probably was a fat little son of a bitch. Should be fired for stupidity, not because he took a picture of him in a Confederate flag shorts. But that's what's wrong. But people, do we know that 12, do you hear me? 12 of our presidents, now take this down, 12 presidents who actually owned slaves: Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, Taylor, Johnson, and Ulysses S. Grant. Those are 12 presidents that owned slaves. Now, there were several vice presidents that also owned slaves. John Calhoun under John Adams, vice president. Martin Van Buren, vice president under Andrew Jackson. Richard M. Johnson, vice president under Van Buren. John Tyler, vice president under William Harrison. William Rufus Devane King, vice president under Franklin Pierce. John C. Breckinridge, vice president under James Buchanan. And Andrew Johnson, vice president under Abraham Lincoln. Now, let's argue the point. We gotta get rid of the $1 bills, don't we? The South fought for slavery. I guarantee you most of the soldiers that flew under that Confederate flag didn't own slaves. Bet you they didn't have a pot to piss in. But George Washington had slaves. Thomas Jefferson had slaves. Madison, Monroe, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, they all had slaves. We going to, at this point, reinvent history? Are we going to take all the monuments of George Washington off of every state house in this great country? Let's get a magic marker, everybody. Take out all your dollar bills and everyone with Washington. We got to blot out his face and name, don't we? He's on our currency. Nobody gives a damn about him? Well, if you're going to give a damn and make such a big ruckus about this Confederate flag situation, and let me preface again, I was never for what the Confederacy stood for. I've never flown a Confederate flag. I've never owned a Confederate flag or a shirt, and I don't believe in slavery. But even more than not believing in slavery, I believe in freedom. I believe in freedom for everybody. Now, you blacks, you ought to understand. You got your freedoms, and that's great. But now some of the blacks and some of the white, these activists, they're trying to take away our freedoms as white people and as even black. There's some blacks that are defending the flying of the Confederate flag. But did you hear me? The 12 presidents and all the vice presidents that owned slaves? What the hell are we going to do about that, people? Are we going to reinvent history? Are we going to get rid and destroy everything that George Washington had between 250 and 350 slaves? Thomas Jefferson had about 200 slaves. James Madison had over 100 slaves. James Monroe had about 75 slaves. Andrew Jackson had about 200 slaves. John Tyler, 70. James Polk, 25. Zachary Taylor, 150. And Ulysses Grant had 5. Well, if you're going to have 5, you might as well have 505. If you kill one person, you're a murderer. You might as well kill 50. It's all the same. 8 presidents owned slaves while living in the executive mansion, living in the White House. 50 of our first 60 years in this new republic, the president of this great United States was a slave owner. Now, does anybody want to dispute that? They can call and dispute it. But you can't dispute it because that was a fact. So what are we going to do, people? What are we going to do? Are we going to get rid of all the monuments for George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, the great Andrew Jackson? Are we going to get rid of every one of their statues, every one of their monuments throughout this great United States of America? Are we going to take their names off everything associated with slavery? We can't do that, people. That take us 20, 30 years. So why? Why are we making such a big to-do about a symbol? A symbol. The flag was a symbol. The Confederate flag was a symbol. That again, that I was against 1,000%. But I'm more against losing our freedoms, our rights as Americans. All these presidents were slaveholders and slave owners. So what are we going to do? Let's start with the dollar bills. Let's start with the monument to Washington. And let's tell you what. Let's change the name of our great capital. It can't be Washington, D.C. anymore. That man owned slaves. That's a bigger slap in the face than the Confederate flag. Washington, D.C., named after a slave owner of 250 to 350 slaves, George Washington. That name, our capital, this great country of ours, must be changed if we're using the same mentality, the same philosophy that we're using with this Confederate flag. This is Bob Romanik. The Grim Reaper of radio, and you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, Radical Radio, and we are, as always, proud to be the Patriot.
From KQQZ 1190 AM, St. Louis, Missouri, USA, you're listening to Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio.
This is Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio, and you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, Radical Radio at its finest. And we are, as always, proud to be the Patriot. We're talking about the Confederate flag. And I read an article just recently, Democrats to scrub slave-owning presidents' names from fundraiser. Now, they've had a fundraiser, the Democrats, and it's always the Kennedy dinner, the Roosevelt dinner, the some dinner. But Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson are being thrown off the name in the Connecticut Democratic Party. It says, revered for their contributions to the Democratic Party, both presidents will likely have their names scrubbed from the state's party annual fundraising dinner because of their connection to slavery? I just proved my point. Now they're getting rid of Thomas Jefferson's name and Andrew Jackson's name, two of our founding fathers, the Democratic Party in Connecticut, because they're getting heat. You can't use that name because they had slaves. Well, here we go. Hell, our people in the future, all of our people in the future, they're going to be so damn confused, they ain't going to know what the hell's what. They're taking Thomas Jefferson's name and Andrew Jackson's name off the Connecticut Democratic Party because of their connection to slavery. Well, let's get rid of Washington. It's all the same. We can't have Washington, D.C. And it says Thomas Jefferson is obviously a great founding father, but he had a sordid past. Well, everybody's got a little sordid in their past, if you know what I mean. And then it says the Connecticut's NAACP has been applying pressure on Democrats to change the name of the event. And now a state Republican committeeman flew the Confederate flag in front of his house. And now the Connecticut NAACP is threatening to organize a march outside his house. What, are you going to take this man's right away? You don't want it at the state house. Now you don't want it in an individual's house? And it ain't a black-white thing. It's a wrong or right thing, and it's wrong. This man, they're going to picket his house because he wants to fly the Confederate flag. The NAACP and the organization started out, I think, to be a good organization. But I've called out the East St. Louis chapter. Hey, Connecticut, come to East St. Louis. Hey, East St. Louis, come on out and picket. Picket the poverty. Picket these politicians in Belleville that are stealing everything. Picket the culture of corruption in St. Clair County and all throughout this great country, NAACP, when you're poor black people, and they are poor, and they are black, and they are decent people. They're not eating. They don't have jobs. And you're going to sit there and picket a white guy's house because he flew a Confederate flag? You're going to picket because they use the name of Thomas Jefferson on a fundraiser? NAACP, you guys, you have the strength to help your people. You're not helping your people by putting political pressure on a symbol such as a flag. You put political pressure on these politicians that aren't doing right, that aren't providing for your people. What the hell is wrong? What is wrong in this great country? The NAACP is going to picket a white guy for flying a Confederate flag in front of his house? They're going to put pressure so the Connecticut Democratic Party has to take the name of Thomas Jefferson off their fundraiser? Think about it, people. When's it going to stop? When's it going to stop? Now, here, listen to this. And I'm going to have to get it again tomorrow. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln made his position clear in Charleston, Illinois on September the 18th, 1858, when he said, in quotes, "I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and the black races." That's Abraham Lincoln saying that in 1858 in Charleston, Illinois. Listen, people, he's never, in quotes, been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the whites and black races. In quotes, he began going on to say that he opposed blacks having the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, the right to hold offices, and definitely the right to intermarry with whites. What he did believe in was, like all men, blacks had the right to improve their conditions in society, enjoy the fruits of their labor. But he wasn't for a black man to have the right to vote. He wasn't for a black man to have the right to vote. He wasn't for a black man to be able to serve on juries, to hold office, or to intermarry with white ladies. This is your president, Abraham Lincoln. Let's get him off that $5 bill. Let's get all of his statues out of Springfield, Illinois, because look what he said about the proud black community. And then President Lincoln, the great emancipator, and I think President Lincoln was a great man. I'm using this as an analogy. I'm using this to show the comparison to this flag situation and to every other symbol of this great country. No one was perfect. No one was perfect. But now Lincoln thought colonization could resolve the issue of slavery. He was for colonization. He said in 1854 that his first instinct would be to free the slaves and then send them to Liberia. Send them to Liberia and colonize them in an African state. This was President Lincoln. What the hell? What is wrong? What is wrong, people? Lincoln wasn't perfect. The Confederate Army wasn't perfect. The Union Army, far from perfect. But we're not changing the name. We're not changing Lincoln, Illinois to some other Illinois. We're not moving in the state of Illinois to take down the Lincoln Memorial. What the hell is wrong? It can only be one way, people. It can't be one way for one situation and another for another situation. So if we're going to take down the Confederate flag, let's rename Washington, D.C., because George Washington, our first president, owned slaves. Let's take down every statue in Springfield of the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, because he believed that black man should be able to give and get what they've deserved and work for what they deserve. But he did not believe that they should have the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, to hold office, to marry white women. I think that's just as bad as slavery, if not worse. And this was Abraham Lincoln. So we can't change. And the point I'm trying to prove, people, we can't change our history. We can't change what our forefathers did during the trying times. No one was perfect. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the Confederate Army, the Union Army, me, you, or all of our ancestors. No one was perfect. We have to live with the good, and we have to live with the bad. So if your concept, if your philosophy, black or white, is get rid of that Confederate flag for what it stood for, then we have to get rid of everything with George Washington, Abe Lincoln, all of our presidents, Thomas Jefferson, because it's all the same principle, people. It's all the same principle. It's not about black. It's not about white. It's about principle. And we have to go one way or the other. This is Bob Romanik. The Grim Reaper of radio, and you've been listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, radical radio. And we are, as always, proud to be the Patriot. Come on back tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll again be on any situation to expose these no-count, rotten bastard politicians. And apparently, from George Washington on down, they were low-life, no-good-for-nothing politicians. No, they were human beings. We all make mistakes. They made mistakes. We can't change history then. We can't change history now. But what we can change is this culture of corruption in St. Clair County. And we can change it by uniting with the St. Clair County Freedom Coalition. We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on anything. But to get rid of this culture of corruption in St. Clair County, And we can do that together by uniting and exposing and dragging these rotten bastards over the political coals of hell, dragging them. And then, each and every forthcoming election, we can destroy them, take them out of office, get rid of these rotten, no-count, political, parasitical, perverted punks, destroy them once and for all for the good of this great country. Destroy them politically, of course, right here on the dark side.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha. To the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time. And I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha.
The Patriot.
Your First Amendment and All-American Station. A division of Insane Broadcasting. Renegade Radio.
KQQZ, St. Louis.